In this session, we will learn about pledging of shares. Before we do that, let's first understand who are promoters. A promoter is typically the founder of the company. He starts with an idea and transforms it into reality. He is the businessman who basically made things happen. A promoter is also typically the biggest shareholder of the company. You probably know some of these famous promoters. Narayan Murthy of Infosys, Azim Premji of Wipro, and Vijay Mallya of United Spirits. A promoter may not always be the CEO of the company, and often there are more than one promoters. Now let's take an example of such a promoter in order to understand pledging. Meet Mr. Vinay Mallya, the promoter of XYZ company. Mr. Mallya needs money, either for business reasons or for personal reasons, we don't know. He goes to a well-known bank to see if he could get a loan. The banker explains Mr. Mallya that the bank gives loans only against collateral, something they can hold on to till he repays the loan. Typical collaterals are properties such as house, land, gold, etc. Mr. Mallya says, look, I can't give any properties for collateral, but I am the promoter and the majority shareholder of a company. The banker says, great, what's the market value of your shares? We can give you a loan worth 30 to 50% of that value. Mr. Mallya says, alright, let's do it. He pledges his shares to the bank and the banker loans him the money he needs. The banker warns though, just like any other collateral, if you fail to repay the loan in time, we have the right to sell these shares. Mr. Mallya says, don't worry, it won't come to that. And he happily leaves with the money. What we just saw is called pledging of shares. Pledging is very common. In a rising interest rate scenario, promoters often use shares owned by them as collateral for loans, and sometimes it is in the best interest of the company. Sometimes promoters even pledge shares to raise capital for increasing their stake in the company. Such cases indicate the promoter's faith in the company's long-term prospects. Investors should react positively in such circumstances. However, pledging is largely considered negative for the company, and you will see why. Instead of going to the banks, promoters sometimes pledge their shares to stock market operators who then easily manipulate the share prices using schemes such as pump and dump. Such a price manipulation can be done easily in low float, small cap stocks. Sometimes a promoter may not have any intention of paying back the loan. For example, if a promoter knows that the company is not doing well and the stock will slide down in near future, he could take the loan with the intention of defaulting on it. In other words, making the bank take the hit instead of himself. Let's go back to Mr. Mallya's case and see what happens. When the share prices of the XYZ company started falling, the banker called Mr. Mallya to put up more cash or shares as collateral. Mr. Mallya first made excuses and at one point straight out refused. It became clear that Mr. Mallya had no intentions of paying back the loan. Left with no other choice, the banker had to sell the shares of the company in the open market. This huge supply of shares created an imbalance in the supply-demand equation and the stock came tumbling down. Sometimes the fall gets accelerated because everybody wants to get out of the stock at the same time. Does it happen in every case? No, but it happened enough times for unsuspecting investors to lose their hard-earned money. Over 90% of the companies listed on BSE have pledged shares, and the majority of them have over 50% of the promoters' shares pledged. Therefore, it is important for both investors and traders to check the pledging in the stocks that they are working with. Here's how you check it. Go to moneycontrol.com, look for the company that you are interested in. Let's say in this case, we are going for Apollo Hospitals. Scroll down, go to shareholding. As you can see here, in case of Apollo Hospital, 73% of the promoters' shares have been pledged. Another useful tool is on trendline.com, where you can see the highest promoter stock pledges for any particular quarter. For example, these are the results for the March 2018 quarter. As a thumb rule, if the pledging of a promoter's held shares is above 50%, they should be considered high risk. Anything between 25% to 50% should be considered medium risk, and anything below 25% should be considered low risk. That's it guys. What we just covered could save you a lot of money by spotting shady companies and staying on top of your current investments. I hope you learned something new today. Take care.